warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm sitting here having a conversation with my wife on certain issues about richness, rich mindset, poor mindset, and as we're discussing, I thought I'd probably share this out there with others as well, because there is a growing, mentality amongst the Muslim Ummah that everyone needs to sort of go out there and make monies, and it's not just for Muslims really. It's for non-Muslims as well, because there is this whole theory about a poor mindset, a rich mindset, and so on. And there were other questions that came off the back of that, which I'm going to share the answers with others as well. So let's fire away with what was the first question you asked?
Can you explain your opinion of mindsets? Are poor people poor because of their poverty mindset, and are rich people rich because of their rich mindset?
So first, it depends on what you mean by poor and what you mean by rich, because one of the things is not to talk black and white about these things. When you say rich, does it mean that people are already rich? When you say poor, how were they poor? I mean, what were the factors behind them being poor or behind someone being rich? Because there are certain people, yes, who are rich, and who are rich because they, climbed the staircase of struggle and they became rich. But there's a whole number of people out there who probably were born with a silver spoon in their mouth. And that's also something to take in consideration. The same thing happens with poor people. There are certain poor people who are born poor, no spoon in their mouth. And there are certain people who actually, climbed down and who became poor. There's also a thing about luck. So let's talk about, you could say from a non-Islamic point of view, you could talk about luck. But from an Islamic point of view, you might call it qadr. We know that qadr is something that plays a massive role in a person's well-being. So what happens is, let's say, for example, you've got someone who's rich, who's becoming rich. As they're moving along with business deals or whatever it is, or any opportunity that they might find, qadr plays a part in it. Or if I use, for the Western world, if I use the word luck, you're at the right place, right moment, right time, you will make advancements. But the opposite is also true. You've got certain poor people who might be unlucky, or maybe qadr has, in the Islamic terms, qadr has not really played to their advantage, and they just remain poor. So you've got to take that in consideration. The other thing is that it all boils down to, this thing about Muslims or others who want to make money. It's good to make money. There's nothing wrong and nothing prohibited to make money. But I think there's a whole thing we've got to look at, from people moving ahead and trying to make money in understanding this whole phenomena. So just to say that all people should make money, all people should make loads of money, all people need to sort of break off from their normal sort of 9-to-5 job, the rat race that everyone's in. Do you actually realize that not all people can do that, A? And if all people did that, then everything would go bust. Because if a person comes out of the mold of a 9-to-5 job and they create their own corporation, their own business, whatever, they actually need to create another rat race for other people to maintain their corporation or business. Nobody can come out of the rat race of work and create a world where everyone's free of being in the rat race. Okay, so there's a lot of things that need to be taken in consideration. But let me draw on one other point, and this is for the viewers, because I actually was talking to my wife about this, and I thought I'd speak about this, which is, some people, when you say poor and when you say rich, and you talk about rich mindset, or you could talk about poor mindset, not all people have the big desire to actually earn a lot of money, and that's not a bad thing. Okay, and the people who actually have a desire to earn a lot of money, that's also not a bad thing. it all depends on whether you want to make that money or whether you don't want to make the money. So let me give you a theory here, if I can explain this. Okay, so let's just say here's the human being. Okay, right? Here's the human being, and what Shah Waliullah rahimahullah says is that you getting this properly.
Yeah.
But you've gone sideways. Is
Like that.
now then people have to turn the things over, right? Is this the same way it was?
Okay, that's fine.
Right. So Shah Waliullah rahimahullah says that every person will have either the connection of the ego. So let's say one thing is the ego, another thing is the ruh or the soul, right? Ruh, or let's just say soul. So the ego has got a connection with either, it's got a connection with the animalistic world, okay? Let's just say, so this is the animalistic world. And you've got the angelic world up here. So, and a human being with their ego, everyone's ego will connect with the animalistic world, but either it's going to be a very light connection, okay, or a strong connection. Okay, so let's draw that closer and let's call that a strong connection. Okay, so he calls this Bahima Khafifa, right? So, and he calls this the Bahima Shadida. And Shah Waliullah also has got a connection with the Ruh, with the angelic world, which I'm going to come to in a bit. Yeah. So what that means is that a person with their ego is either going to connect with those kind of animals that are really not the predators. Okay, so they're like, you know, we're talking about the sheep, the cows, the, you know, horses and so on. Whereas the strong connection with the animalistic world would be like the beastly sort of strong desires, like you've got the lions, you've got the predators, okay, the lions, okay. So that's kind of a strong connection, that's a light connection, right? Now with the ruh, with the person's soul, again, the same thing happens with the angelic world. Either you've got a light connection or you've got a strong connection, right? Now, if a person has got a light connection, it means that they've got a connection with those kind of angels that do as they're told to do, but they don't actually question much. Allah has said in the Holy Quran, يَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ, in Surah number 66, ayah number 6. Whereas a strong connection is with those angels that actually question, not question because they object to God, but they question because they want to understand. So this comes from the higher sort of, you know, this whole thing is kind of the higher order thinking, right? This whole strong sort of connection. Whereas the lower connection, if someone has a lower connection, they would be of those people who wouldn't have those kind of, you know, thinking sort of capacities, right? Same happens over here. If a person's got a strong connection with the animalistic world, they've got strong desires, right? Whereas if you look at the people who've got a light connection, they've got, you know, not such a strong sort of, you know, desire towards the world. So when you say animalistic sort of world, animalistic desires, this is your desires towards what you want to actually get in terms of the worldly matters. And over here, we can see sort of the intuitive and higher order thinking and a lower order thinking and so on. And yes, from a religious perspective, Shah Waliullah is saying that everyone's got kind of a capacity to expand. So if you've got a capacity to expand into the stronger one, you start low, but then you carry on expanding until you actually get to, you know, your full potential is really big. But if you expand with a full potential, only go very light, then you'll expand, but you can only go to a certain circumference, and you'll basically stop. So that's because Qadar Allah, you know, Allah's Qadar is there, that you've been created with just that kind of capacity. Same happens with the desires here, that you've got, you know, you'll either go very strong in your desires or you can only go light. Now, here's the thing about thinking about poor people and rich people and so on. Okay. Now, in this thing that we've just described, what you'll find is that some people, they don't have a big desire to acquire the world. It's not a bad thing. You know, if a person, for example, here has a very sort of light connection towards their, you know, their desires towards this world, but they've got a very strong connection, because all people will have either one of these or one of these. That's all you can have. And in the end, Shaykh Hasan Ali actually says that you've got sort of 8 different combinations that can be made with all of this. Okay, so a person might have light connection, angelic light connection, animalistic light connection, or they might have angelic strong connection and light connection here, or angelic strong connection, animalistic strong connection, and or angelic light connection and strong connection over here. Like that, you can make sort of 8 different combinations from this. Now, let's just say, for example, a poor person has got the desires to this world with a light connection. You know, they're going to be the people who are actually happy. You know, they don't want to break out of the mold and things of what they've got. Okay, but if somebody has got a strong connection, there's nothing wrong with that. If somebody really wants to, you know, get connected up with making money, you know, going ahead and making more and more, that's fine. As long as they control what they've got in the right way later on. But when you look at this is a very interesting part, because what this shows is, from Shaykh Hasan Ali's point of view, is that you've got a side to you which is to do with your akhirah, or with your next life, and that's where your ruh or your soul connects to. Okay, now people who've got a light connection towards to that side, what will happen is you've got to look at this side as well. So if they've got a light connection towards the angelic sort of world, so their ruh potential is only going to a small sort of, you know, to a certain degree, but it's limited. But at the same time, if they've got a strong desire towards the world connection, that's a pretty bad combo if they don't watch out. Because what will happen is that the spiritual connection is quite low, but our spiritual drive, let's just say, is low, but their worldly drive is big. And these people will normally go out there, they'll want to make a lot of money. They want to basically burst boundaries. They want to bust as many boundaries as they can to get, you know, whatever it might be. This means maybe towards wealth, maybe towards women, maybe towards, you know, men of this world, maybe towards, you know, acquiring assets, financially becoming really big, whatever it might be. It could be that you want to become, you know, boastful, arrogant, whatever. You know, you've got a big desire here, okay, and it carries on increasing.
Can't you have both? Can't you?
Well, yeah. We'll come to the both thing in a bit. But let me just start with this one connection, which is if you've got a light angelic connection, but you've got a strong sort of animalistic connection, then it could become potentially dangerous unless you start controlling this. So you have to have really good suhbah, really good company of the salihin and the pious people. You have to seriously keep yourself in good company of people who are motivating themselves towards the akhirah, towards the next world, and you really have to look after this side, because you've got a heavy side down here and you've got a low side down there. Now, the opposite can happen. Let's just look at the opposite. Somebody's got strong angelic connections, right? And at the same time, they've got, you know, a light desire here. These people naturally will be moving towards the akhirah and towards what they want from the akhirah, but they'll, you know, in terms of the dunya, they'll be happy, you know, with what they've got, and they wouldn't really, you know, okay, if they make a little bit of money, that's fine, but they're not the people who try and make, you know, loads of money. They need it. If they don't get this money, then this might happen, that might happen. Oh my God, you know, I can't do these massive ambitions that I've got of this world if I don't have that. No, they're not going to be thinking like that. Now, let's look at the other two sort of combos. So you've got here, somebody might have, like what you just asked right now, somebody might have a high connection with the angelic world, a strong connection there, but they've also got a strong connection with the animalistic world. Now, those people, yes, they've got potential in both of the areas. And what Shaykh Hasan Ali says in his Hujjatul al-Baligha is that most of the Anbiya, you know, they are such individuals who've got the potential of the highest order of having the ruh connecting up. They have the potential of having the strong sort of desires. However, the Anbiya, all the prophets, have completely controlled this section, right? So it doesn't really bother them so much at all. It doesn't even bother them at all, right? So they've got such control over this that they're always thinking with the highest order. Now, If such people were to make money, let's just look at Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, okay? When he makes money and he becomes like a rich person, a king, and so on and so forth, what happens to his life? What does he become? Well, he becomes the best individual on the earth, the richest and the best individual on the earth. Why? Because he's controlled this. He has a very strong desire to carry on. He sees the Queen of Sheba, and he says, well, we're going to basically, control and take over her kingdom, and she better come and submit to us. That's fine, but what he doesn't do is he doesn't lose on this side. And because he's completely controlled that side, and it's all submitted to the hukum of Allah Azza wa Jal, making a lot of money at that time doesn't actually derail you. When Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu made a lot of money, okay, again, he had a huge potential, all right, with his ruh. Now, what most of these, this kind of, I don't know, there's a whole wave of entrepreneurship and whatever, make loads of money. Once you got money, you can do this, you can do that. But most people, what they don't look at is they don't look at what's happening again from not only the dunya, but looking at the akhirah and what happens to that human being. Because if you're going to talk about the billions that Sayyidina Uthman radiallahu anhu had, right? And how much money he was making, subhanallah, he made a lot of money, right? But you're forgetting that Sayyidina Uthman was the very individual that Imam Nawawi rahimahullah has recorded. He's from the 8 Sahaba who would often complete, or now and again, they would complete the entire Quran in 2 rakats from Isha to Fajr in just 2 rakats. So Sayyidina Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu would sometimes come home and he would read 17 juz, right? 17 juz of the Quran in 1 rakah and 13 juz in the other one. And by the time he's finished, it's actually Fajr time. Okay. Now, when you look at certain Sahaba who were like the billionaire Sahaba, they call them. Okay. Don't please do injustice to the whole wealth of this Sahaba and what they acquired when you haven't looked at their ibadah, the level of their ibadah, the amount of ibadah they did. They say that some of them, okay, fine, they went to the marketplace, and when you saw them trading, you'd think that they don't have the concern of the akhirah. But the same Sahaba, they said, when they came in the masjid and they started the 2 rakats, it looked like the way they prayed those rakats, it looked like they had no concern for the dunya. Okay, so they had this massive balance where they controlled this sort of side. So this whole thing about, okay, let's now move back to this sort of poor mentality and rich mentality. Does it mean that every person who becomes rich has, all the values that they have? Well, not necessarily, okay? And does it mean every poor person is going to stay in their position throughout their life because of just a poor, mentality state? Not necessarily, okay? There are people in both quarters who are struggling, okay? The poor man's struggle is different from the rich man's struggle, okay? Whereas the rich man might not find, let's just look at, one of the things that the Quran will speak about, which is having peace, okay? Having peace, being people, being such people who've actually got peace in their mind, peace in their heart, real peace. I'm not talking about, being peaceful because you've just got a nice house and you've got luxuries. No, I'm talking about peace, real sort of peace of mind and so on. That can only happen through the dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Nobody can get that. Now, I'm saying that there are poor people who complain, all right, about their state and situation and so on. They haven't got peace. Okay? There are rich people who are complaining. Where does the peace come in? The peace is something that only comes in through the dhikr of Allah Azza wa Jalla. It doesn't come through money. Right? Making money can be a very good thing, but making money can be a very bad thing. What's good and bad about money is not money itself. It's here, right? It's the taqwa in your heart. They say that having money in your hands, but not in your heart, is the right way to go about with money. Right? So you can become a millionaire or a billionaire, but you have it in your hand, which means you cannot have the desire of the dunya and wanting to get more and more in that heart. Because once you got that, actually got a marad, and you've got an illness in your heart. But if you were able to balance it properly, then making a lot of money is fine, as long as your heart is fine, your heart is content. You know, you're actually making progress in the deen as well as the dunya, that's fine. And you know what? Most people I've seen, I'm talking about 90-something% of people I've seen from even the Muslim world, okay, they haven't got the balance right. Because what they're doing is, this is what happens, okay? They're in the 20s or the 30s, and they're trying to make a lot of money. And what's in their head is that once I make the money, I'm going to dedicate a lot of my time towards the akhirah and less time towards my business and dunya. I'm still going to run things, I'm still going to make money, but I'm going to really, give, towards my akhirah. And you know what usually happens with these people? They usually find a very cheap way of showing their contribution towards towards Allah Azza wa Jal, which is, you got loads of money, what's the best thing to do? Oh, give large amounts of sadaqah. Right? So they give large amounts of sadaqah, which is really good.
Thing, yeah.
It's a good thing. Okay, it's a good thing. All right, let's not say it's a bad thing. It's a really good thing. So you're giving loads of money to people and so on and so forth. That's really good. But what you're not doing, and what I don't see these businessmen doing, is actually building up on the taqwa. Right? I'm not talking here about the long beards. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about brothers who are not found in the masjid. I'm not talking about that. I'm actually talking about the fundamental of your whole life, which is based on taqwa. When you've got taqwa, when you're building on, let's say, the knowledge of the deen, how many of them are actually building on your progressively going through knowledge of the deen, acting upon the deen, increasing the amal, increasing the actions, as well as making money? Look, I'm not saying leave your money, no. But how many have I seen doing that? Actually, let's say late 30s. You get to late 30s, you've made your money. You've made your, tens of thousands of pounds.
You wouldn't know deep down, though, who's doing that and who's not, would you?
Well, it's a fair point, okay? I wouldn't really deeply know, what they're doing. But what I don't see is, and what I do see, because I've been in contact with hundreds and thousands of people out there. And some of them are, mashallah, alhamdulillah, really good, people who are making the money. Only a few are found, okay, who really have got the balance right. There are a few I know, okay, and mashallah, tabarakallah, what they're doing is they're really progressing in the deen and the dunya at the same time. So they're making loads of money, and they're also, with the monies, they're trying to really invest in something of their akhirah. I'm not talking about a simple orphanage or something like that, no. I'm talking about really trying to build something that will make, that will make a difference to the world, that will make a difference to the future generations, okay? There are a few Muslims, don't get me wrong.
So it's actually a good thing if Muslims start becoming sort of entrepreneurs or making money to help.
It's only a good thing if you start off with the deen. It's only a good thing. So let's be clear with this. A lot of people who are going into these entrepreneurships and so on, unfortunately, most of them don't have a good level of the deen. Okay, a lot of them think that 5 daily prayers and a bit of Quran tilawa and a bit of Islamic talks here and there is it. That's it, right? And Ramadan fasting, zakah giving zakah, and going to Hajj once in a while and once in a lifetime. They actually think that's the deen, but they've completely lost the plot. Because if that was the deen, then we would have had the Sahaba just stick to those things, and that would have been the deen. Where is, for example, where is da'wah, right? Where is da'wah in people's lives? Because da'wah is actually a very important part of the deen. Where is a nawafil? Extra nawafil, because if you don't protect your nawafil, the shaitan's going to come and attack all your sunnahs.
But dawah can be.
Well, let me just finish that. So if you don't look after your sunan and your things that you're doing, I'm not talking about salah only here. I'm talking about general things, right? If you haven't got your sunan protected, then shaitan will soon come and start playing with your fard. Okay. And if you're not careful there, then soon you start delaying your fard, and then you start missing fard and so on. That can easily happen. So I'm not putting every Muslim entrepreneur down there.
And dawah can be in different aspects. Just by dealing with people can be dawah.
Sorry?
Dealing with people in a good way can be dawah.
Well, that's true, and there are Muslim businessmen, businesswomen who are actually spreading Islam just through their character and other things. That's fine. They come across nice, to others. That's fine.
And he started to spread through commerce as well in the.
It did, but that's that's a real. That would be a real dangerous way of just trying to conceptualize the whole of how dawah worked. Okay? There are a few parts of the world where Islam did spread through commerce and trade, and that was because not of the commerce and trade, it was because of the ethics in business. It was because of the way they actually came across. Again, the hearts were very good. So they knew how to not cheat people, named the highest morals in dealing with people, trying to really look after people when you're sort of making your monies and so on. When they got to those countries and they had those morals, it's the morals in the business, the ethics in the business that made people flock towards Islam. It's not because of business itself. Okay, Sahaba, when they went across and they spread the deen, or others they spread the deen, it was more because of how they came across as a full sort of package than just from monetary sort of side. Now,
so what's your opinion when a lot of people say the more money you make as Muslims, the more you can help poor people and other people and the Ummah in general?
See, what the Ummah needs, what people need is, the people don't need money as their number one asset to make all their troubles and things disappear. Okay, the people need Allah. Okay. Whether you're poor or you're rich, if you have Allah, you have everything. Okay, and it's not just a small phrase I'm saying. If you've got Allah in your heart, if akhirah is your desire, if you're seriously connecting more with Allah than anything else, then whether you're rich or poor, you'll make advancements. So a rich person who's got Allah in his heart, subhanallah, they'll make massive changes to people's lives, and it's a good thing. A poor person who has Allah in his heart will never be lost in their poverty because of the situation. But a poor person who doesn't have Allah in their heart, a rich person who doesn't have Allah in their heart, that's the problem. So let's just take away the whole financial problems out the way. Because a poor person who doesn't have Allah in his heart, they'll start stealing. They'll start leading lives that are miserable because of the way their mind works. Okay, they'll start becoming jealous very easily of other people. They'll start, possibly even trying to make money really quickly, really fast, but by breaking other people's hearts, by cheating other people. That's what a poor person might end up doing. But the same happens with a rich person. If a rich person, if they've got Allah in their heart, alhamdulillah, they'll always use their monies and every direction they go in, alhamdulillah, it'll be really good. But if they don't have Allah in their heart, then they could easily start to get into a bubble where they just want to get richer and richer and richer. They could easily have greed, which is a disease of the heart. They could start manipulating businesses. They could start, they could start work. In this whole fair trade thing, they won't be for fair trade if they have got Allah in their heart and so on, so forth. And there'll be a lot of other difficulties that they'll run into in their lives with their money. Okay,
so going back to the rich mindset and poor mindset, for someone with a poverty mindset, do you think they can actually change their mindset and come out of their poverty because of their mindset?
It's to do with
do that.
Okay, it's to do with. I think there's a whole side here about what potential Allah has given to a certain person's mind. Some minds Allah has created as leaders, and some minds Allah has created as subordinates. Okay, and Allah has done that purposefully, because if you had the whole earth full of leaders, we'd kill each other. Okay, we wouldn't have a world left. If you had the whole world full of subordinates, we would not have to lead, and there would be other corruptions of the earth. So Allah's created a fair amount of leaders and a fair amount of subordinates. Okay, now, if a person wants to come out of the poor state, and Allah has given them a very good sort of, intuitive sort of mindset, then, a leader kind of mindset, they'll always be a leader. They'll always break through barriers, and they'll always, grow. Okay? If a person has got a mindset that is not of that kind, they might not be able to, but it's not always a bad thing. Okay, this is why
Aren't you limiting
I
Allah's
put all
potential in the sense that He can
Say that
limit
again?
someone's possibilities?
Are we not? What? Sorry.
And limiting Allah's sort of limitless.
Okay, that's a very good point. Okay, so which is, a person is not supposed to just sit down and think that, okay, I'm just gonna be happy with whatever Allah's given me and never actually strive to work for anything more. That's a wrong mentality, because with qadar, the way it works is, if Allah's written something for you, then you will get that only if you work for it. Right? If you have to struggle for it, if you make, if you sit down with a plan of trying to make more money, whatever, or something, then yes, alhamdulillah, if it's written for you, you'll get that, but only if you actually make a move for it. If you don't make a move and you think you're going to sit down there and everything's going to come to you, then it's not. And that's not how qadr works. Now, the question that you asked is, are you limiting yourself? Are you limiting Allah's qadr by you not, trying to break out through the mold that you're in? There are a few factors in play here. Number one is that there's a certain limitation, because qadr actually means limit as well. It means power of Allah, but it also means limitation. So when you reach that limit, you'll find you won't be able to go beyond that limit, whatever limit it is. Now that limit, Allah can increase and He can decrease. يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيَقْدِرُ. So all the time we've got, for some people, the potential of trying to earn more increases, and for some people, potential of trying to increase more in their wealth decreases. Okay.
What about the gratefulness? If you're grateful.
Before I get to gratefulness, so this is one factor, which is there's a qadr of Allah that limits us. So you can't go beyond whatever Allah has put you in. But then again, Allah could have written in your qadr that if you did make some kind of progress, if you learned a certain, if you did a certain business, sort of, modular, whatever it is, if you actually invested in your money in certain businesses, then you could actually increase. Okay, that could be the case. But also the opposite could be there, which is, even if you try, you're not going to be able to make it because Allah has other plans for you. That could be the case. But there's another part I want to mention as well, which is in a hadith of Qudsi in Bukhari, it says, Ana inda dhanni abdi bi, that I am as my servant thinks of me to be. And what that means is that if you actually have a good desire, okay, well, fine. If you actually have a good desire of, sorry, not desire. If you actually really believe that Allah Azza wa Jal is going to make you, a person who could become rich, if you have that hope in you, then it inshallah will help you towards that. Right? It can help you towards that. If you think that, oh, Allah is just going to leave me in poverty all my life, then your thought could actually lead you to that. That is true, because Allah will deal. Ana inda dhanni abdi bi means that Allah says, I will deal with my servant, or I will be to my servant as he thinks me to be. Which means that if my servant actually thinks that I'm going to do a certain thing to him or her, then fine, I'll do it for him like that. So there is also a part of the human willpower that has, plays a role in how Allah would want to deal with you. So وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَن يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ. You make your willpower a certain way, and if Allah wants to, take you further, He will put His willpower towards that. But if you put it to a negative direction, Allah can take you in a negative direction. So there's a lot of factors that play. You can't simply put it down, oh, poor mindset, poor people, they're just going to have this mindset and they're going to always keep themselves in this mindset because they think low. It's not so black and white as that. Yeah. What did you have as another question?
So what about being grateful? So how do you balance being grateful for what you've got and wanting more? Isn't that greed?
So okay, that's a good question, because there's always this question about how grateful you are or how much greed you've got. Okay, I think both of them are really down to a person and their ta'alluq ma Allah. their connection with Allah Azza wa Jal, and the ta'alluq with the dunya. So a person has to always check where they are. If you've got a heart that with whatever you've got at this moment, I'm not talking about when you're rich, I'm not talking about any state in the future, no, I'm talking about right now. If you actually feel right now that whatever Allah has given me, I really am happy with that, then you're grateful. Right? That's your ta'alluq with Allah.
So what about
let me just finish off.
Another car?
Let me just finish off. Let me just finish off, right? So you're really grateful with what you've got. You're really happy. You're content. Okay. Now, if you want something more, let's just say you want another car. Now, what's the reason for you wanting that car? If it is because it's a necessity, it's going to probably even make a few good luxuries for yourself, whether it's for you, your children, your family, a bigger car, it's going to have comfortable seats, and it's going to be good for the journeys that you're going to make, then alhamdulillah, that's not greed. That's you spend your money in that, and you buy a nice car, and you basically don't feel the absolute desire to have that car. When you don't feel that, but you kind of, okay, if Allah gave it to me, if I've got the money for it and I can buy it for myself, then I buy it, then actually Allah likes that. Like, so for example, in a hadith, a Sahabi, when the Prophet ﷺ was talking about arrogance, a Sahabi said, a Messenger of Allah, I like my shoes, my clothes to be good, and I like my shoes to look good. And the Prophet ﷺ said that that's not arrogance. He said, Inna Allaha yuhibbu ayyanzura ila athari ni'matihi ala abdi. Allah loves to see the extent of his gifts on his servant. So when a servant has been gifted with money and they spend it on themselves in a nice way, in a obviously a balanced way, and you buy nice clothes, nice shoes, Allah actually loves to see that, because you appreciate what Allah gave you and you used it in a nice way. That's a person without the illnesses of the heart. But a person who actually wants to buy certain things that go beyond their necessity, they don't actually need any of this stuff. It's not even for comfort or pleasure. It's purely because they either want to have a big status, or they want to show, so it's either riyah, or they want to show that they're big to others, so it's arrogance or pride that comes in. These are all diseases of the heart. If these factors play a role in them wanting to have that bigger place, bigger car, whatever, then that's greed. That could be greed. Or if I'll tell you another way of looking at it. If they're looking at another person, let's say a rich person is looking at another person saying, oh, he's got this much, okay, I want to get that much as well, right? That's greed. If a rich person looks at another rich person and says, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah for him, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah for me, that's good. The poor person, same thing. If a poor person looks at another person above him and he thinks, alhamdulillah, that's fine, that's good for him, whatever Allah's put me in, alhamdulillah, I'm happy with that, that's appreciation and that's gratefulness. But if a person looks, even if a poor person looks at somebody else and starts to feel unsettled, starts to feel that, oh, I should have had that, or I want that, or I want to get that, okay? Now that's greed.
Can a person not, though, be happy for that person who's wealthy and then still want to be wealthy themselves? I mean, is that...
Okay, so if you look at the dunya and you look at all people above you and you're happy for everybody what they got, okay, A, okay, B, what you do is you still have got a good, desire in you to get more money or to get more wealth, okay. And the question is, when you've got that desire inside you and you want to get that, is that a bad thing? Well, no, it's not a bad thing, again, based on your intentions and what you want to do, all right? So one thing is that if a person acquires, well, let's say I'm not jealous of anybody, I'm not greedy of anyone, all right? I haven't got arrogance inside me, and I'm not doing this to show off or anything. So I have got none of the diseases in my heart, okay? But I do want to increase my wealth power, okay? Why do I want to do that? Because I could actually use that money for good purposes. And I could actually benefit other people with that money, benefit people around me, myself and others with that money. Nothing wrong with that, as long as the akhirah is always balanced, as long as Allah is in the heart. Because now it's got nothing to do with other people and greed. Now it's got to do with the person himself or herself, and how much they might get indulged in the world versus the akhirah and what they can actually invest for their next life. Here's where people who are not greedy, who are not jealous, who are not, who are not ungrateful, here's where a lot of people fall. Because they make their monies, but when they're in their mid-30s or they get to the 40s, and let's just say they're really successful, they're successful in their little business or the medium-sized business that they've got. When you've got a business running, you have to manage things. You have to look over things. Now, if they can replace themselves with other managers, part-time, whatever it is, and they can dedicate their time towards learning the deen, practicing the deen, growing in terms of the akhirah and their contribution towards their afterlife, then alhamdulillah, brother, sister, make your dunya and get your dunya and get your akhirah, alhamdulillah. But I don't see that in a lot of these people. What happens is they get busier and busier as they move from the 30s to their 40s, and the kind of things they do with the money is, yes, they do give sadaqahs, which is a good thing, all right? These are good Muslim sort of entrepreneurs, but I don't see them, I don't really see them moving in terms of the knowledge of the deen. I don't see them very serious. And I don't see them moving in terms of the practice towards their own amal, their own even akhlaq, or their good actions, or their akhirah, investment of the akhirah. I don't see them moving as well and as good as they're moving in their dunya terms, right? In the way of the world. And by the time they get to the 60s to the 70s, right, most of the people have made a lot of money. They haven't really spent much time invested in the akhirah, but they spend a lot of their time investing in the dunya, and it's game over after that. It's like they come to the end of their life. The best they can do after that is give more charity. But okay, charity will get them reward, don't get me wrong. But what about yourself? What about your own self-development in terms of who you are as a Muslim and what you should do for the akhirah and for others in this world? In a larger sense, not every Muslim who's made money, does that, and that's where my concern is. And those Muslims who have, alhamdulillah, they're role models for others, and alhamdulillah. Any other?
Okay, no, that's it.
Yeah. As a final thing, I think when we looked at this thing here, I think people need to take this quite seriously, because what it shows, and what Shah Waliullah tried to do, is to make us think that we do have a soul, all right? Don't neglect that. We do have an ego, and look, the whole of the dunya thing really connects with your ego. It does not connect with your ruh. Nobody goes for the world because the ruh is desiring the world, right? When you want to make money, it's always got to do with your ego, right? Only people who desire the akhirah is connected with the ruh. Now, my main thing of this whole video is to all those people out there, may Allah bless you if you're making money. May Allah bless you if you're investing your money in your businesses. May Allah give you tawfiq to not only make money, but to have all the right heart for it, to not put the world in your heart, to always keep it in your hands. May Allah Azza wa Jalla give you tawfiq to always increase in your ilm, your knowledge, your amal, in your actions, and make you spend your time for your akhirah, as well as your dunya as well. Yes, but if you haven't got the balance right, you're the biggest loser in the akhirah, I'm sorry to say. And if you've got the balance right, you're probably the biggest gainer in the akhirah. And the akhirah matters more. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى, Allah has said, okay? Which is the akhirah is much more greater than the dunya. So may Allah Azza wa Jalla, make this a benefit for all of us. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.